Hi there, guys, and welcome to Behind the Crypto podcast, sponsored by CryptoC. My name is Mike Graham, and I'm your guide and host as we go on a really exciting conversations, speaking to some of the sharpest minds in the crypto space. Really looking forward to today's conversation. We've got Edwin Mata, CEO from Brickken. Edwin, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here, Mike. It's an absolute pleasure to be joining your podcast and then be able to explain how Brickken is tackling the RWA sector. Thanks for that.
No, it's such a pleasure to have you. I mean, I've been following the Brickken journey a little bit. We've obviously met before as well. You came out to Dubai and, you were a panelist at one of the events and it was just so awesome. Tell us, I mean, listen, introduce yourself a little bit to the audience. Who is Edwin? What are you up to? Tell us a little bit about you.
Absolutely. So, yes, my name is Edwin Mata, the CEO and co-founder of Brickken. I am an M&A lawyer, so I started my journey wearing suits all day and then trying to tackle all the things for my clients. And I stumbled upon tech around 2016, 17 because of a client, and I started understanding the legality from a different perspective, not just from a company, but also all the hurdles that technology companies have to overcome. And basically, due to a project I was involved, I started reading about blockchain. And in 2020, I decided that I needed to be in the space. I took a lot of everything that was being built, especially on how fractionalization could happen. And then I started understanding the assets could be broken down. So I was very intrigued, and then just curiosity led me to create Brickken alongside my founders.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. What kind of law, just out of interest, what kind of law were you studying?
I was doing corporate law, but the
Okay,
mergers and acquisitions. So I was doing
okay,
with restructuring of companies, capital increases, buyouts. So I
amazing.
was pretty much understanding that companies are very inefficient when they do all of these things. It's very bureaucratic and very slow.
Yeah,
So I saw in technology a way to boost certain processes or automatize, and then
yeah.
just tokenization is just next level of automatizations.
I mean, yeah, totally. I think that's one of the really exciting things with Web3, right? Even like kind of with, we're going to talk a little bit about what Brickken does, but with RWAs, I think it really opens up that speed of process, that speed of decision making, just the speed of everything becomes so much more efficient, right? So you got into the Web3 space around 2020, yeah?
Yes, so 2017, 2018, I was more of on the sidelines, just
Okay.
reading, understanding. I jumped a couple of Telegram groups. At the time, I had no idea what was Telegram, so I was like, ah, just another app. So I was pretty much just a fanboy. And
Yeah.
then 2020, yeah, I did just decided to jump in. I had my fellow founder who I was working with in another company who was who's the blockchain guy. So he
Mm.
was always feeding me information. It's like, hey, want to
hmm
check this and everything. So yeah, I mean, 2020 did just went full in.
And and what was your first kind of, what was your, I mean, I imagine Bricken has evolved quite a bit since 2020, right? I mean, 4 years in Web3 is like, decades in the normal world almost, right? We kind of have a saying that 1 month in Web3 is like a year in the normal world. So I imagine Bricken evolved quite a lot since then. But when you first started, what was it that you guys were doing? Like, how did you do that first step coming into Web3 from being a lawyer in the world before? What was kind of the first thing that you were doing?
So in the beginning, we were trying to do real estate tokenization, but we were the
Okay.
ones managing the assets. So we wanted to get accumulation from other potential investors. They give us the money, we do whatever we did with the real estate flips or whatever, and then just give back the interest. So we were the ones
Okay.
doing the tokenization. And then we started thinking more of a crowdfunding and blockchain itself. We were using it not not even like 1/10 of all the power. It was just
hmm
more as a ledger, getting some transactions, but it was not how we're doing it now, like full Web3.
Mm.
So we did a pivot in 2021 half where we're like, you know what, if we want to do this, we shouldn't just use like the transaction layer of blockchain, we should do everything, kind of like how the asset is on chain, how the money goes on chain.
Mm.
Because we were saying like if we were just doing a crowdfunding of real estate and then just adding the blockchain word per se.
hmm hmm
So that's kind of like how we were born. The more we started understanding what we were doing, the more we started having conversations, the more we started learning about the space. the more we started loving it. And then we were like, you know what? Let's go from being a Web2 company to a Web3 company. And funny thing is, the MVP that we had built, we destroyed it. We don't even right now. The code is in some locker hidden because we
Uh-huh.
had to do everything from scratch. So the first thing we went is to get funds because we were like, okay, so now we have to redo everything. But us founders, we just ran out of funds because
Yeah.
we were already building something else.
Yeah.
So luckily we got a Spanish grant from the government, and we were like,
Amazing.
oh, now we can definitely do the pivot because we got funds. And then we started fundraising and everything. So it was a lot of stress that pivot, but we knew that if we stay where we were, we would not be accomplishing what we're accomplishing now, just
Yeah.
because we were just like testing the waters. And when you're an
Hmm.
entrepreneur, if you go all in, it's either all in bad or all in good, but there's no way you can just go testing.
Yeah, you can't just dip your toes and see if the water is nice and good temperature.
No,
You,
it's
you either
impossible.
you either jump in and swim or you jump in and sink.
Yeah, but at least you learn how to swim, right? In
And
theory.
it's true. It's true. It's true. Well, listen, look, I think that brings us to a very nice point in the conversation. Tell us a little bit about Bricken. Tell us a bit what your guys are doing. I know obviously you go through that, you help projects, you help businesses go through that tokenization process from Web 2 into Web 3. I guess it'd be interesting to kind of hear maybe a little bit more about what you guys do. And also maybe, what I would be really interested in is why do clients want to work with you guys through that process, right? That why is it so appealing for them to do that tokenization? Why do they come to Bricken? So yeah, I mean, it'd be great to hear from you on that.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, when we were doing the asset tokenization ourselves, we came to a conclusion also as to why we had to pivot is companies have one USP. So, and I'm gonna put the example of Shopify because we started learning from that. Especially
Okay.
one of our founders was like, "We have to do that," and we were all
Okay.
learning, and it's like, why? So let's say I'm a chair maker. Why not? And I want to sell chairs online. I'm a great chair maker, but I have no clue of technology, maybe, and I have no clue how to set up an e-commerce. So I have two options. Either I build myself my own e-commerce or I go to Shopify and same day I have my e-commerce up and running.
Mm.
More efficient. I go to the e-commerce and then I just keep myself because if you start losing track of, oh, I'm going to develop my own tech and maybe
Hmm.
tech is not even your core business, you will most
Mm.
likely fail. It's
Yeah.
very hard to be good at something and then suddenly out of the blue, be good at something else. Or you
Very
hire
true.
some tech team. And that's the most horrible decision because if you hire an outsource, how are you going to fix the bugs? It's an ongoing pain of not knowing what is happening, the relying on third parties, and it's an important part of your business. So based on that, we were like, why don't we just ourselves make ourselves the Shopify of tokenization in the sense that
Mm.
companies would like to tokenize their assets. They will need capitalization, funding, and all that. And we were
Hmm.
seeing some real estate companies saying, "Oh, I want to tokenize," but I was like, "But those are going to probably fail because they're going to have two problems. They're going to be good at real estate, good at technology. It's so your team just mixes. You have two teams, one
Mm.
for your everyday business and one from the technology side of business. A
Hmm.
lot will be too complex. So based
Yeah.
on that, we decided let's just become the Shopify. And that's what we did. We did a plug and play solution for companies who want to tokenize their assets, don't have the pain of understanding anything that goes with tech, but here is your dashboard, here is your
Hmm.
functionality, here is your tooling,
Nice.
all of that. And this is why they're picking us because when they hear tokenization, it's very much subjective yet. Like
Mm.
nobody knows in their head what it is. It's like, what is
Yeah.
it? Do I receive like a code? Like I
Mm.
don't even is it a website? Like that's one of the questions that I always ask people is like think about tokenization as of today, nobody can tell me how it is.
Well,
So I
how would
also
you how do you describe that's such a good point, Edwin, actually. It's such a good point. How do you describe that tokenization? Like what's the benefit? Let's say a real estate, company, they're thinking about doing it. What is it that they're doing? Yeah. I know me and you
yeah,
know, right? But maybe people listening to this, they're going, tokenization, what is he talking about?
yeah. I think that's kind of like for example, if you want to say like I want to get my cab driver on the door, I'll use Uber and Uber is an app. So now
Hmm.
people say, oh, I can get taxis via an app, or I want to stay somewhere, Airbnb. There's a lot of mechanisms out there, or social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, like it got standardized. And in the tokenization, we have not yet standardized that visualization for people to say, like,
Mm.
oh, I'm looking for this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like right now what we're trying to accomplish. And it's like, just think about the same as Shopify. It's we give you a dashboard where you can do everything you want. What is tokenize an asset? Is you can represent the asset online. This is
Mm,
how it looks. Then you
mm,
can build up your own website through the dashboard. So all of this process that I'm explaining now, it's kind of like the education phase because we want to be the one that standardizes the process. Because I've seen some tokenization platforms that they give you the backend, for example, the code. And it's like, but I'm a chair maker. What am I supposed to do with this like code? I don't even like that's scary. Like I
yeah.
don't want to see that.
Can't even understand what it
Those
says.
yeah, like they just see a lot they see like the matrix kind of like just going down. It's like, oh, that's scary. Like, but that's the beauty of what we're trying to accomplish. It's like
I love
people
that.
to think it's like, okay, I get a dashboard, I get kind of like that flow is how we standardize tokenization. For people, when we ask what is tokenization, they say right off the bat, oh, it's a website where you can do all of this, that. And it will be
Mm.
like, that's where adoption comes, when people know what they're using and what they expect from it.
Yeah, I think the adoption thing, just to tap on that, what you're saying, the adoption thing is kind of the next, it's one of the big narratives at the moment in the Web3 space, right? How do we get more people adapting into it? How do we get more people learning about it? How do we get more people having that really seamless user experience from Web2 into Web3, right? I think RWAs, they provide a real path for us to do that, right? Because there's that real world set, there's that real world application. What do you think from your experience, right? Having worked with some of the clients you work with, what is the biggest benefit, maybe a couple of benefits that they get through going through that tokenization process? Because obviously they've got their main business, right? And then now they're going to go on chain, they're going to tokenize. What are some of the benefits that they're getting through that process?
Yes. So in this sense, it's when you go through that Web3 venture, you understand all the horror that it is. I mean, even me as a founder in 2020, before that, I was just only using centralized exchanges. And
Okay.
then when I had to adapt to get into decentralized with my wallet, it was a scary moment.
Yeah.
You get all these signings and then you don't know what is really happening because we're
Yeah.
not used to that. And it's like, if I use from a bank transfer, I can always call the bank and it's like, hey, the bank
Yeah.
went wrong or anything. So I have somebody assisting me and here is self-custody.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like one of the biggest pains that we're seeing. And then what I'm trying to say here is the journey of the Web3 to the Web2 is still very complex.
Mm.
Adoption still happens through the custodian main authority. So the
Mm-hmm.
centralized exchanges are the ones bringing all the Web2 people,
Yeah.
but they don't jump right off the bat into Web3, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you talk to somebody new, they don't go like, yeah, I'm just going to go to Uniswap to do all of this. And they're like, don't even know what's Uniswap or what
Yeah.
is next. Like, so what we're trying to accomplish here is, and then before the end of the year, we'll have it is kind of like do a blockchain less experience because
Mm-hmm.
people will always get used to their Google sign in. They
Mm-hmm.
will always used to paying with their Visa MasterCard.
Yeah.
And then in the back, blockchain should never be the selling point. And I think that was a mistake in the space. People selling blockchain as a solution.
Mm-hmm.
But blockchain is just the backend. It's just a ledger. It's just part of but the front end and how you accomplish that people use this technology without focusing on the technology, that has been the biggest blocker and stopper.
Mm.
So on our senses, how can we accomplish a three-step procedure?
Mm.
Google sign in,
Mm-hmm.
Visa, MasterCard, bank transfer, obtaining the asset. And we're not even
Nice.
going to call them tokens anymore. It's going to be
Mm.
like obtaining what you bought, your
Mm-hmm.
purchase receipt.
Mm-hmm.
And then they will get it all through our technology. Yes, in a wallet, but for them, it won't be a wallet. It will be the visualization of their investor portal. Kind of like, oh, if I
Mm.
click clear, I have everything. And yes, it will
Mm.
be in their own wallet, self custody. And if they want to move it around, they can. But through now good technology being out there, like NPC wallets and everything that is
Mm-hmm.
happening in space, now that is achievable. It's not so clean yet, but we will get there. And I think that's the beauty of it. That in the future, blockchain should only be a backend, and that's
Yeah.
it. Not the selling point.
100%. I had a conversation with someone recently on this, right? Where they were like, one of the bottlenecks with Web3 or with crypto is the whole concept of a revolution, right? Like a a monetary revolution, right? Whereas I was talking to this gentleman and he said, what we want to focus on, the next step is an evolution, which is kind of what you're talking about, right? Not trying to totally revolutionize people's mindset, but still have the technology, but use it in a way that's very user-friendly and that they know how to use, right? So that's really, really cool. That's really, really cool. No, I love that. I actually, with RWAs, why do you, just before we kind of start to wrap up, why do you think RWAs are kind of being so popular now? Because they've kind of come on the scene, right? And they've kind of had this real push on their narrative and they're doing really well. But why do you think that is? Do you think it's because they're that bridge? Do you think there's something else? Like, what is your thoughts on that?
All right, so that's very good. The reason being is, I believe, a lot of native Web3 people were kind of like jumping the space. And the Web2, they have a vast knowledge on how the everyday world works. And I thought that was also kind of like a stopper for a lot of Web2, because the Web3 people decided to invent their own language, their own movements, and everything. But they were just mimicking some things of the real life. For example, staking, it's a deposit. It's an account deposit. It's a deposit account that has yielding.
Yeah.
Everybody uses that. When they put money in the bank, no matter if the yielding is 0.1, it's still yielding. But the fact that they created all this language and complexity, oh, we're gonna do the risk-taking liquidity pool under our base, and it's like, I don't know what you're talking, but maybe it was just like a long-term yielding process, right?
Yeah.
So when other people started jumping in this space and started getting the knowledge, it's like, oh, I know what is here. For example, tokenization is like, I understand that's an asset being fractionalized. I understand. So when more people from Web2, from big firms, big, like all these kind of like everyday knowledge started jumping here, they started like moving more around. So it's not that they displaced the Web3. On the contrary, the Web3 started getting feet, and not bad. It's just more know-how, which is what we needed. It was a very niche space, very closed. It was very also degen-like, kind of like, we're going to fight the system and everything.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's bad or good. I'm just saying that we needed more from this for the adoption to happen. And
Absolutely.
I'm telling you all this just because why tokenization is because the world runs on securities. The world has companies, the world has equity, the world has debt. States issue bonds, they have treasuries. The world runs on legal tender money, USD, yen, Mexican peso, whatever. So all of these things that run the world, now they're using it for this tech. So that's why we see now the BlackRock jumping in, all of these kind of things. But they see all the great innovation that was always there, but they were not really much invited because they started saying like, oh, we just crypto world, oh, the Bitcoin, Ethereum. And they forgot that the selling point was the infrastructure, because that's the great thing, the characteristics of blockchain that could help all of these people become more efficient. They were not getting invited. So once the bridge started happening, that's why I'm going to events now or private gatherings. The other day it happened to me in Dubai.
Yeah.
I went with the polo and I felt underdressed. And I was like, what's happening here? I felt underdressed. And I thought about it. This is like, I love that event, not because of the suit, but I was like, this is a new paradigm. A
Yeah.
lot of suit like JP Morgan's, the Bank of American guys, all of this. I was in that gathering and I was like, this is weird. I've never experienced that up till now, but that's going to allow the trillion euros of financial money to be here. We don't want to, that's why these people need to understand that adoption doesn't happen by the revolution. Adoption happens by the evolution of these guys entering
Yeah.
here and saying, I'm going to bring all of these trillion euros of money onto
Yeah.
chain. And they should be like, this is it. When money
Yeah.
starts flowing in, that's adoption.
100%, 100%. I think the whole BlackRock thing is so exciting. The whole, everything that we're seeing with like corporate getting involved in the Web3 crypto space. It's really, really exciting, isn't it? So listen, tell me, I think in terms of with what you're doing, maybe personal, I see that you obviously do a few things personally out as well. You're a professor in some universities and, you educate people. I think that's so amazing. What are some of your maybe personal goals in terms of Web3? And what are some of the goals that you guys have for Brickken? I think obviously for Brickken, you're looking at creating that easier adoption process. But yeah, what are some of the goals that Edwin has?
Yeah, I honestly, for me, it's about legacy in the sense that I want people to remember Brickken as one of the initiator boosters of the tokenization of real world assets. If we make it, super happy. I'll probably have I live in a very nice house in the beach without technology because after this journey you get burned. So that's it. But also will be nice for it to be remembered as kind of like the early starters, maybe a reference in the future is like, oh, we should copy everything they did good and not copy what they did wrong. Because obviously, as we're testing and beginning a market, we make continually more mistake than in a standardized market because our
Yeah,
benchmark on so many things is not there. And
yeah,
then personally for me, like if I don't know, 50, 60, and I already did good with Brickken, I'll stay to being a college professor. I like to educate and then enjoy just telling stories and nothing better than just saying like the know-how that I accomplished.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Passing on that knowledge, right? I think it's so important when you think about kind of the hierarchy of needs. Once you get to a certain level, you got to share the love almost, right? Share the knowledge with
absolutely,
everybody. It's important.
absolutely.
Listen, I'm quite curious. Just two more things before we wrap up. The first thing, what is your favorite coin or token at the moment? I'm quite curious on this one. Is it an RWA? Is it something else? Is it a meme
Yeah.
coin? What's your
All right.
favorite?
All right. So I'm an Ethereum
Outside,
fan.
sorry, outside of your own.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not gonna shield the BKN. No, that's where I have the most, obviously. No, I like Ethereum. Ethereum for me, just because of what they're building as a technology, I'm a true fan, and obviously it's growing. As a meme coin, I don't have any more meme coins. I in 2018, 19, I hold a lot of Dodge just because everybody had a little bit. So I was like in the space 2021, I hold and then I sold. So I did some profit there. Thank you, Alan, for all the nonsense to be. Um, and then now I have a lot of infra. I like it. And RWAs, I'm stacking up. I'm actually doing something cool. I'm going to founders of other RWA projects and say, hey, you want to swap a little bit of my beacon to your token? And we're
Nice.
founders, so we support each other and we don't sell.
Amazing.
Not only like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. It's like, I mean, it's just out of respect for the space.
Amazing.
So now I'm having a couple of RWAs and I want to mass more. I want to really hold like the top 50 on CMC. So I'm contacted them. It's like, hey, it's not for selling, not for dumping, but I want to hold your token. And then seeing how that happens, kind of like that's a personal objective that I have. Finish my year with 50 founders sending me their a little bit of their token, and I send them a little bit of mine.
I love that. I love that. That's so cool. That's such a great way to kind of build that network, build exposure, get them to
Yeah.
find out about Bricken as well, right? All right, listen, last question, and then maybe, I'll ask you to maybe think of a quote to wrap up on, or maybe some thought for people, in the Web3 world that can guide them. But my last question to you is this. So what do you see as the most bullish or one of the most bullish movements in Web3 at the moment? I think you might say RWAs. Maybe you'll say something else, but what do you see as kind of that something that you're really bullish as the narrative?
All right. So obviously RWA, but I'm gonna stack it up more into fintech. I
Okay.
think blockchain as a financial enabler just kills it. Everything that has to do with cross-border payments,
Mm,
kind of like the easiness of funds moving around the world.
yeah.
I've seen a lot of now even banks or neobanks adding the layer or trying to add the layer of you have a bank account, but it
Mm,
also mimics a wallet on chain. So
hmm
you have both and you don't have to worry about what. I think that's going to be the greatest enabler for the retail. Because
mm,
if they're able to just get a bank account or a payment with their Visa and all of the rest just happens in the back without them knowing or wanting to know, I think that's crucial. So for me, kind of like right now, the biggest pain of adoption happens at the payment layer and at the wallet layer.
mm.
So I'm hoping that all of them get solved. Luckily, when I started in 2020, that was an absolute mess.
Yeah.
4 years later, I'm finding some solutions that maybe they're not there yet, but I understand where they're going. And I'm like, hopefully they get funded and not some meme coins or NFTs that is like useless. Those guys are actually building the future. So let's see how that
Yeah.
goes.
No, that's really cool. That's really cool. It's funny you're saying that, right? About the bank accounts and all that. Because when I think about it, I have friends, for example, who hold most of their crypto portfolio on Revolut. right?
Yeah,
They
exactly.
literally, you know, they literally bank with Revolut, but because Revolut now has a really good seamless system in terms of buying crypto, they just make that adoption, they make that transition really, really smoothly. It'll be interesting how you get into the kind of the projects that are not the top, you know, the altcoins, the Bitcoins, the Ethereums, the Solanas. How do you get exposure for tokens like Brickken, for example, right? How do you get
Yeah.
mass adoption coming through there? But Edwin, look, I've really enjoyed the conversation. I hope you guys listening, watching have as well. But before we wrap up, Edwin, do you want to leave us with maybe a quote, or it could be maybe an idea or a thought that maybe inspire people in the Web3 world?
Yeah, no, I'll be there for builders, and I think just after 4 years, I understand that the biggest quality a founder should have is resilience. So never give up. Always stick to your truth and get a great team and enjoy the process. That's kind of like something I missed during my first 2 years of enjoying the process, and now I
Mm.
enjoy the process, and I'm way happier, man. That's it.
I love that. Enjoy the process. I think there's so much truth in that, isn't there? Because I think sometimes I talk to founders all the time. They're getting so, you know, focused on what they're doing, and there's so much pressure, and there's a constant fundraising element, and you know, who knows what's
Yeah.
happening. But yeah, I think enjoying that process is such a powerful thought process, right? So no, thank you so much for that, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. My name's Mike Graham. This has been Edwin Mata, and I look forward to seeing you all again on the next episode. Cheers. Bye for
Thank
now.
you.